Okay, I don't do this. I don't share clips from my private trainings, but I'm breaking that rule today because this one tool has changed more conversations than anything I have ever taught. And if you feel overlooked or ignored or like people just don't hear you, this is the script that can finally change everything and make your words land. What you're about to see, this is from a private group where people pay a lot of money, but I just think that this is too valuable. Too many people need this to keep it behind a paywall. So here it is. I hope you use this because if you do, everything starts to change. The next time, if you have a situation like that, you're going to say, wait a minute, I'm going to break the cycle and cause a miraculous instant, which is going to be my turning point. And you do that by being intentional when you speak. And I would use a DESC script, and it goes like this. I would describe the behavior in one sentence. When you practice more intentional communication and have that written down, that's going to come into play in the D section of your DESC. And the D is going to be, I'm going to describe one situation, especially if I'm dealing with a man. I want to hone in on one situation, because if I were to say anything that's untrue, any bit of information that's untrue that can't be proven, if I were to say, hey, why aren't you doing what I asked you to do lately? Sometimes you don't. One of the things I want to do is slow down that self-talk so that the message that I'm sending can get through. And if I use words that are not 100% on the money, people will think, what are you talking about? I'm always doing this. I'm always doing that. I'm not always doing that. So I want to be very specific and say, for example, for the D, what did Daniel do today? Daniel, this morning when I asked you to hoover, that's it. Now, you know that I've said the one specific thing. Then I move on to the E. The E is the effects of the behavior. And so when he did not hoover, how did that affect the world or you? What's the big deal?
I felt neglected, misunderstood, abandoned.
No, just one. We want to keep it focused on one. Neglect him. So here's what I've got so far with my script. Daniel, this morning I asked you to back in the living room and you did not do that. And I felt abandoned. So now I'm done with that. Okay, so the challenge that so many of us have is we don't know when to quit. I've said now what I have to say. I'm leaving it and I'm going to go on to the next section, which is my S. The S is I'm going to say what I want as the change in behavior. So what would you want him to do in the future that's different from what he did today? In the future, if I ask you to back in the living room and you say you're going to
do it.
So in the future, if you say you're going to do something like vacuum the living room, do it. Now, this is a key. I want to be as specific as I possibly can. So in the future, if you say you're going to do something, I'd like you to do it be specific, like within
an hour.
Perfect. Now I get what you're saying. So in the future, if you agree to do something, in my mind, I'm thinking that means within the hour. So please do that within the hour or tell me when you're going to do it. And then now I'm all ready to wrap it up. So the C would be the consequence. So remember, it's D, describe the situation or the behavior. E, give the effects of the behavior. And a lot of us miss one or two of these. Then I'm going to S, say what I want. And C, give you a consequence. So it's DESC. It's basically, here's what you did. Here's why that's wrong. Here's what I'd like. Here's what you'll get. And if I can remember those four things, especially in a high-paced environment like opening up restaurants, I have to learn to say, here's what you did wrong. Here's why that's wrong. Here's what you need to do differently. And here's what you get. I need to be able to say things real fast and to the point and not mince words. And so being able to do that, having that pattern, DESC, here's what you did. Here's why that's wrong. Here's what I want. Here's what you'll get. That will set you apart as a master communicator, if you can get used to that. And the little tiny things in that type of script, like eliminating the always and sometimes and never. I want to make sure none of these can be argued with in your mind. If I were to say anything other than, Daniel, this morning, you said you were going to vacuum the living room, and then 2 hours later, you still had not done that. I can't argue with that. So I'm going to be thinking to myself, oh, I'm busted. Once you have your freestyle scripts, like a DESC script, a when you I feel because, whatever they may be, do not underestimate the power of your lead-in line and your closing line. You're at a convention, a meeting, holiday, whatever. So somebody gets up into the front of the room and they say something like, good morning, everybody. And people will be like, morning. And then they'll say, oh, you could do better than that. Good morning. And as soon as you hear that, you're like, this is going to be torture. This is going to be horrible, because I've heard so many bad speakers start that way. And so I've now connected you with people that you don't want to probably be connected with. Most people don't focus on the first line out of their mouth. And if you do, it'll make all the difference in the world. And there are 3 keys when it comes to a effective lead-in line, like with Daniel, for example. If you were to start with Daniel, what is the worst thing you could say at the beginning of a conversation if you want a man in general to open up to you and hear the message that you're about to send? What's the worst thing I could say, Victoria? Daniel, we need to talk. Okay, that's the worst thing I could say. And so, like little tiny phrases like that, for most people, especially men, that's when you'll see the Wile E. Coyote cutout on the wall. If I could possibly escape at that moment, I would. But if you change it just a little bit, because we have these biochemical responses that no one's ever said, Victoria, we need to talk. I got you a brand new car. So we have these connections with these phrases. These are the 3 keys. Use I language. Okay. Use I language. Make it short. And you put a period and a pregnant pause after your lead-in line. Okay. So for example, to put all of that together, I language is not going to be like, oh, I feel this way. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, I'm going to make the first sentence about me instead of about you. So a lot of people will sit down and they'll be like, we need to talk about your behavior last week. Or if I instead remember to make it about me, I can say something like, Daniel, I need your help. Victoria, I'm frustrated and could use some leadership. So if I make it about me using I language, you tend to get people when you do that. If you were to say, Victoria, I'm frustrated and I need your help, people tend to be like, what about? If you were to ask for help, people love that. I tend to use as my duct tape lead-in lines 2 things. I tend to say, Victoria, I need your help. Or, Victoria, I'm concerned. And people tend to lean in and be like, oh, what about? And then what I'm concerned about is what you did. But we're going to get to that in a minute. And then you put a period and you take a breath. And that gives everybody a moment to settle in to this conversation that you have set up beautifully now. It sounds simple, but if you were to sit down with Daniel and be like, Daniel, I'm frustrated and I need your help. Victoria, I'm troubled. And when you say trouble, people will be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And they can say, I'm going to get into your behavior. So once we set up the lead-in line, we have our DESC script, for example. You have to have your closing line. Because if you don't have a closing line, including me, I'll just babble on into an eternity. Oh, that's it. Oh. And I've lost everything. So at the end of a one-way message, which is what it sounds like you're sending, Victoria, like in these types of situations, I'm just telling you, stop doing this and start doing this. I want to get you to agree to that. I want you to say, yes, I will make that change. It's sometimes hard for us to think of a benefit. Most of the time, simply saying, and if you could do that, Daniel, I will never bring this up again. Those are things that you can recycle in many different situations. And it's like a quick fix for anything. It's a temporary fix. And so if you can do this, I'll never bring it up again. But once I've done that, I want to use a closing line to wrap it all up and put a bow on this. And generally speaking, there's one key for a closing line in these types of situations. And that is make it a closed-ended question. And a closed-ended question would be something like, so I've told you now, Victoria, I need your help. Here's what you did. Here's what that's wrong. Here's what I need. And here's what you get. Can I count on you to do that? When you say to the average person, can I count on you for that? People will be like, yes, you can. And so they will say yes. And just the fact that I'm saying yes increases the odds now that I will do it. Like, Victoria, based on what we just said, how might you tell Daniel, using a lead-in line, closing line, DESC, danger phrases, power phrases, all that jazz, to vacuum the living room? What you say they're going to do? How might you do that using this formula?
When you don't do the vacuuming, I really feel neglected because I really need your help. And if you could do that in an hour, I will never bring it up again.
Okay, if that impacted you, or you feel as though you might use that, if you learned something, even just a little bit, don't stop here. If that's you, imagine what happens if you train this for real. This is exactly what we do inside my private group. This is just the surface of what we do, actually. And the next private group starts on February 8th. You'll get real communication tools that change how people respond to you and see you forever. So if you want to stop being overlooked and you are done being the person who thinks of the perfect thing to say after the conversation, click the link below. Come train with me. I'd love to work with you.